Welcome to another episode of the Wealthy Podcast. I'm your host, Shauna Nyrose, and today's episode is an important one, especially if you have been struggling ongoing with anxiety, depression, or any other kind of mental health disorder that leaves you feeling stuck and your world feeling small. Today, I'm speaking with Ashley Phillips, who is a specialist in EMDR. This is a treatment that I had many years ago that really helped me get over a trauma that I experienced in a serious car accident and allowed me to be able to travel the world on planes once again without suffering debilitating anxiety. Ashley explains what EMDR is, how it works in our brain, and how it is really revolutionizing treatment and care for people who have experienced trauma. You're going to want to listen up. So in my early 20s, I was in a pretty bad car accident. At the time, I walked away from it and told myself I was fine. But for years after, I couldn't get on a plane without serious anxiety. It became a real problem because my job at the time required frequent travel. So I was faced with whether to take medication for the anxiety, which was problematic because of my job, or find another job and avoid planes for the rest of my life. And my stepmom at the time, and this was like 25 years ago, who's a family therapist, suggested I try this new therapy that had something to do with eye movement. I found a therapist, I was in Vancouver at the time, who specialized in EMDR, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. And I'll be honest, it felt weird and I didn't fully understand how following hand movements or sounds could help, but it totally did. Which is why I'm so grateful to welcome Ashley Phillips to the podcast. Ashley is a Canadian certified counselor here in Kelowna with a master's in counseling and extensive advanced training in EMDR. Ashley works primarily with individuals healing from trauma, both the obvious life-altering events and the smaller chronic experiences that can quietly shape our mental health. In this episode, we'll unpack what trauma actually is, how it impacts the brain and nervous system, and why it can quietly shape your life even years after an event. Ashley breaks down the difference between big T and little t trauma. She explains how EMDR works on a neurological level and shares what to look for in a trauma therapist. So if you've ever wondered why you feel stuck, triggered, anxious, or numb, this episode might just connect the dots. Very excited. Let's get into it. Welcome, Ashley.
Thank you.
It's so great to have you. We have a bit of a tradition on the Wealthy Podcast. Most of the people, in fact, all of the people that come and sit in that chair have been pulled or called to work in healthcare, in the sort of helping professions by some early experience or some motivation, inspiration. So I'm just curious, like, where did this start for you and how did you get here?
Such a big question.
I know.
And I'm so grateful to have like the heads up on the question because it gave me time to really think about it.
Yeah.
And I remember during it's my very first job after university, like my first like big girl job. And I was a sport animator for a school board back in Nova Scotia.
Oh.
So my whole job was to get schools more active and healthy, like to increase that physical activity and also helping with the food policy program so that children can make healthier choices when they're at school. So part of my job actually is that they trained me to be a yoga teacher, and I could go into schools and teach yoga from primary all the way up to grade 12. And it was so fun because, initially teachers were like, like the kids aren't going to lie in Shavasana.
Yeah.
They're not going to lie there. And I'm like, oh, challenge accepted.
Yeah.
So we're playing yoga with like the little ones. And at the end, they are lying there in Shavasana for like 10 minutes. And you could see like how regulated these kids were by the end and how that actually really improved the rest of their school day. And then with working with high school teenage boys and doing yoga. And at first they're like, yoga? This is a joke. And really making them work so hard on it. And then again, that regulation time at the end and how I could overhear them talking how they really, really wanted to do yoga again tomorrow. And just seeing how that impacted them, of how movement and the mindfulness piece actually really helped those kids to be more regulated. They were doing better in school. They, the teachers noticed that when I came in. They're like, they're doing better. And I was like, huh. So there's a really big thing around being more regulated in our lives, whether it's through movement or obviously now with counseling with the profession that I'm in, but just seeing how that makes a really fundamental difference in their lives. So that kept the call of like to keep on going in this work.
Yeah. And you and I share that I was a yoga teacher for several years. Gosh, I think about 12 years. I think I'm officially retired now. But the interesting part to me, and I really resonate with what you're saying, was learning that there is such a profound connection between the mind and the body.
Absolutely.
Right. And becoming more tuned into kind of like the feedback of the body, which is what happens, kind of what you're talking about, that regulation, when you get still or you just pay attention. Like there's so much that pulls our attention away from sort of the sensory experience in our bodies, that when you're asked to pay attention to it, you're like, wow, this is wild. Like anxiety shows up as like real sensation and feeling in the body. And I think it's a surprise and a shock to people when they first realize that. And I think with the kids, I totally had the same experience. Kids were awesome because like you think, oh, there's no way that they're gonna get this. And they do. And you look around and it's literally the end of the class and they're laying on the gym floor. Like it's not even comfortable, right? They're just laying there in stillness, doing nothing. Yeah. It's like wild.
It was great.
I thank you for bringing that memory back, because I was like, I remember, and I used to do it with boys as well. Yeah. And it was the same for them. It didn't last long. Like you could start to see after a couple of minutes with it, which I think is fair, a little fidgety, or they would look to the side, like, what's my neighbor doing? But it did happen. Like, it is possible.
Totally.
Yeah. That's why they call it a practice, though. It's not easy. Okay. So to start things off, I want to kind of dial into the basics. Yeah. What is trauma?
So broadly, we can look at trauma as something that happened that shouldn't have happened, and also something that didn't happen but should have happened, on a very broad kind of spectrum. And then when we look at trauma in general, it's also something that is very upsetting and very frightening, and the experience is generally almost too large or too painful for that person to really process by themselves. And trauma really is subjective. Like what is traumatic for me will be what is not traumatic for somebody else. And when I work with moms who've gone through the labor process and given birth, for them, they might have a traumatic experience, but for the healthcare team, they wouldn't flag it as anything traumatic because it might have been a run-of-the-mill experience for them, right? But not for that woman. So trauma very much is subjective. And so again, what's going to be traumatic for me will not be the same for somebody else.
Yeah. And I think, and I'm glad that you make that distinction, because it really, truly is like, there isn't like a book of like, okay, here's all the list of traumas, right? I remember actually going back to yoga. I took a trauma, it was like basically a trauma sensitive teaching module. So basically how to teach yoga to a group of people that may or may not have experienced trauma in a way that is safe. And yoga can be kind of a hands-on experience or not. But it was so interesting because the teacher said at one point, she was like getting us to list all of the different poses that could be like traumatic or trigger someone who'd had trauma. And like we started going through with the obvious ones, but then it got to this point where it was like literally every pose could. And that was the point. It was that you don't know. Right. There's no way to know because it is so deeply, deeply personal.
Exactly. And our entire life experiences will kind of shape and form what is going to be traumatic for us.
Exactly. What's the difference? I hear this quite a bit. What's the difference between like a big T trauma and a little T trauma?
Right. So the big T traumas are things that I think most people think of when they think of a trauma. So we're thinking of a very big life-threatening event. So
Like my car accident.
Like car accident, plane crashes, natural disasters, assaults, like you name it. The things that we think of are like, oh,
like the death of a parent.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just like those big things that you're expecting, like it's a life-threatening event that you have to run away from, flee from, or that you can't.
Right.
And again, death of loved ones are going to be part of that. Being in combat, military, seeing experiences. So it may not be even
that you've experienced,
right? But also what you witness,
right,
can be that traumatic event. And then the small T traumas, those are like the smaller, like they're the less obvious ones, but typically have happened repeatedly. So things like bullying, seeing maybe family conflict, like parental divorce. Those are the ones that are more of those sneaky ones,
insidious.
Maybe like failure at school, for example. You didn't pass a class, you lose your job. Like these are the smaller ones that are not going to be so obvious, but at the same time has a significant impact to that individual. And I see that a lot with, like bullying, right? Like it might be this really small little thing, but it keeps on happening, and it may not be like the physical type of bullying that we may think of. It might be like just being teased or being made fun of. And on repeat, that starts becoming that small T trauma that we grow up believing, like I don't belong, or no one likes me, I'm unlovable, like starts developing that core belief system. And that's part of that small T trauma along the way.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So, and interestingly, on sort of like the small T trauma, and even your example of bullying, could it also be that if those sort of initial experiences aren't processed, which is, I know that's what kind of why we see a therapist.
Absolutely.
Is to help us go back to, either that significant event, the big T trauma, or when in the case of a little T trauma, to kind of rewind back to when, the little T trauma began to happen, and how that felt, and how we can process that in order to stop experiencing. Because I imagine when you've experienced something like that and it really is difficult, you start to see it in other areas of your life, even if it may not exist.
Exactly.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. It starts becoming, here's more evidence that proves.
That's right.
Right? So we don't see the evidence that proves the opposite.
Yeah.
It's here's more and more evidence that proves this thing that happened.
Right.
Or the belief systems.
That's right.
And because, especially when we have children or with little kids, is that their brains are very differently. Like they are different. They are in their own development of form. And so they're going to see the world in a different way. So they don't have adult brains with adult logic and adult thoughts. It is child. So oftentimes with those earlier childhood memories, it's encoded in the development of that child at that time as like 4 years old or 5 years old or 6 years old, whatever the age is. And that's also what makes it kind of that small T trauma, is that if they weren't invited to be part of a picture, it's not, it's no big deal as an adult. They're like, they just want to get some pictures by themselves. It's,
I'm left out. I'm unlovable. They don't like me.
Exactly. Yeah. Versus like as an adult, we would know, well, of course they want to get some pictures by themselves. Like, I don't have to be in every single picture with every single person.
Yeah. Or if you don't have that thing, you're just like, okay, whatever.
Totally.
Like,
right?
Not a thing.
Right. But that's how like trauma kind of gets encoded in that way, because it's also in the developmental mind frame.
Right.
Yeah.
And is this why when we talk about trauma, a lot of the work is about thinking about our childhood? I hear that a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, barring the obvious big T trauma events that happen later in life, again, some of the most insidious traumas are the ones that happen when we're young.
Yes.
Yeah.
And because we don't have capacity when we're young, like we can't exactly like run or flee
or process,
right? We don't have a lot of choice and autonomy when we're really, really young.
Yeah.
So again, like we're working through those earlier childhood memories because some of them can deeply impact us when we're adults, but we don't always recognize that that's part of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Totally. Okay. So what's actually happening in the brain when someone experiences a traumatic event? Because this is really important when we start to talk about the EMDR.
Yeah. So like what's happening in the brain? So one thing is we have the amygdala. That's the watchtower. I call it the alarm. And that is what is sending out all the information.
And where is that? Is it like
somewhere
in the
back? Yeah, it's like somewhere back in here. Like I'm not a neuroscientist, so I do have my flip charts at the office, but it's like back here. And it becomes really heightened and really hyperactive during a traumatic event. And we want that because it's sending out all the information of, hey, there's danger.
Warning.
Exactly. We want that to happen. So that's what incites the fear and the panic. And then we've got this prefrontal cortex. That's the thinking part where we think more logically, we think clearly. And that starts to kind of go offline because we're not exactly going to think logically or critically during a traumatic event.
You don't have time.
We don't have time. We got to go.
Yeah.
Right. So think back to the forest fires, a couple of years ago when I was talking to clients afterwards, once they were more regulated in the weeks after, people are laughing at themselves because they're like, I was grabbing like balloons and a water bottle and strawberries, and I didn't grab the passports or the bags that we actually had packed in case there was a fire.
You're not thinking.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's a very normal response. Like that's a very normal response because the body is going into fight, flight, or freeze mode.
Right.
So then what's happening in our bodies is we have all the stress hormones like cortisol, adrenaline, and we're being flooded by it so that we get our heart rate up. We start turning down our digestion because, like, who needs to digest dinner when there's a lion chasing me? Like, I don't need that.
The proverbial saber-toothed.
Right, of course, right? Like, don't need that, right?
Yes.
So the heart rate's going up. We're going to sweat. Like, we are there to fight,
right,
or freeze, whatever that response is, because it's an act of survival.
Yeah,
and it's very, very primitive. This is going to go back as far back as you remember, that this is a really critical, like life-saving thing that we do. So it's actually like a beautiful process. And we often think more about how like there's that fight response, right? Like get out, like move, like fight, like let's move, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But there's also the freeze.
Like face it kind of. Yeah.
Right. Or run away from it.
Or run away.
And then there's also like that freeze response where people don't move. Like they go into that, this total shutdown response, which is also a beautiful thing because what is happening is that the data that's coming into the brain essentially is saying, we can't get out of this.
We don't know how. Yeah.
Like we can't get out. You can't fight. It's too big. It's too much. So we're going to shut you down.
And this is not something that you actively choose.
Oh gosh, no.
Like in that moment, I always think, oh, I'm definitely a runner. Like I'm definitely going to be the runaway person. I'm the flight person. But you don't know. Like
we don't know. And so like there's that silly question, especially for women if they've been assaulted, where it's like, well, why didn't you fight back?
Right.
And it's like, because their body is saying you can't fight. Like you're not going to win this one. Mm-hmm. So let's just shut everything down. So we shut down, we numb out, we disconnect, we start to not really feel pain so we can survive the traumatic event. Mm. And so it's a beautiful process. We want all this stuff to happen. Like it's all about survival. So we want all of this to happen. Mm-hmm. And then the difference is that we want to be able to process this event. So some people will walk away from whatever said event and it's fine. Mm-hmm. They're good. Mm-hmm. And other people, it was just too much for them to process. And so then it becomes a traumatic memory for them.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. So I find this subject matter so fascinating. So there's the fight, flight, freeze. Mm-hmm. Then once the traumatic event has finished, I learned that there's in nature, there, where I'm going with this, right?
I do. I'm so excited.
I know. Me too. There's another very physical thing that happens. Shake.
Yeah.
Why does the shake happen and why is it so important?
Gosh, it's like this takes me right back to my very first conference after during my master's program, where I was literally in a conference session where they had us on the floor in bridge pose to essentially get the shaking going.
Yeah.
And I remember
in bridge?
Yeah, it was like we started in bridge and that's how it got the movement going. And like it just naturally took over and you're like, this is wild, right? Because
Yeah.
I wasn't asking my body to do this. It just naturally started doing it.
Mhm.
So I think of a way is that we have all of this extra energy in our body. Like
Yes.
think of everything that's just been flooded, right? Our heart rate is up. Everything is so up.
Stress
like this.
hormones.
Yes. And our body's like, we need to like dissipate all this. Like
Yeah.
we have to get it out.
Yeah.
So part of the shaking and the moving is to actually discharge all of this insane amount of energy that is in our
And
bodies.
that's not like a woo-woo yoga thing. That's actually
No.
like evidence-based.
Yes.
There's research to support that
Yes.
those that have that shake
Yes.
physical experience actually do process the trauma.
Yes.
I don't know if there's a way to say like better, more healthy.
It helps to help like release
Yes.
like what just happened.
And is it important that that happen fairly soon after like the event?
I would always say like the sooner the better,
Yeah.
you know, to kind of help really discharge things.
Yeah.
And we want people to kind of go at their own pace as well, right?
Yeah.
And so I know when people maybe experience those shakes, they get really freaked out by it.
Yeah.
That's also where I can see panic attacks are coming in.
Yeah.
It's like, what's happening
But
in my
panic
body?
attack
And
could
really
be
scary, but it's also part of our body needs to discharge
Right.
all this insane amount of energy that our body has created
Yeah.
from this fight, flight, freeze response.
It's so funny because when I heard about this phenomena, I thought, wow, that makes so much sense. And the culture and the world that we live in now, it's very much like what you're trying always to do is be like, I'm okay. Like, I'm okay. And like to
Right.
like stuff that down
Right.
where, you know, it might look funny if you're doing, but I remember I had a very close friend several years ago who lost their partner in a very tragic way.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember she used to like shake her hands, like she was flicking off something.
Right.
And I remember both of us being like, I wonder what that is. And then later I learned that there's this really primal response to trauma where you actually do really need to release that energy.
Right. Like we're still mammals, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's fascinating. Okay. So I guess then this question is going to seem kind of obvious, but for somebody who has experienced, let's say, a big T trauma or like a car accident or what have you, something sudden, shocking, and traumatic, or is just feeling like that like they're really stuck. Like there may not be something that they can put their finger on,
Right.
but something is holding them back.
Right.
Why is it important to seek help with a therapist, a trained trauma therapist?
Yeah. In essence, it's like not just going to magically go away.
Right.
Right. Like
You can't undo it yourself.
Like not really. I mean, like when we look at it, people often think like by the time I'm 40, like this will go away, or 50 or whatever, like I'll just grow out of it. It's like, we don't inherently just grow out of a traumatic event.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why we need to get into the chair and see a therapist and work through it, because it just isn't going to magically disappear.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I mean, I wish it did. That'd be fabulous. But inherently, it's not going to. Like in the first month, for sure, we're really going to know if someone is going to actually have a diagnosis for PTSD. Like we don't make that right away after like a big T trauma, because we need to kind of give that month in terms of like letting that brain settle, letting the nervous system settle. Like, is this actually going to be like a PTSD diagnosis? And then after that, it's like, okay, we're at a month, 4 weeks. Now we need to kind of start working through this if it's still really impacting.
What do you say to somebody who knows that they've maybe had a traumatic experience, or let's say childhood trauma that is very traumatic?
Yeah.
But they don't want to go to therapy because they don't want to go back there. That they've sort of developed coping mechanisms over the years that allow them to function, but maybe there's things that are creeping up, panic attacks or, you know, chronic anxiety, depression, what have you, the things that manifest perhaps with unresolved trauma.
Yeah.
But they're scared.
Oof. I mean, it is scary to go and see someone.
Yeah.
To talk about things that you're like, I do not want to talk about that.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I mean, one perspective I have is like start doing some reading. So you're starting to learn more about like what trauma is and how it impacts us. We have a bit more of an understanding. And then also when we're going to see a therapist, the important thing to know, at least from my perspective and how I operate, is that there's no forcing, right? There's no forcing. There's so much choice and autonomy on what we work with, right? I'll have clients who will say like, I'm not ready to go there yet. And I'm like, then we don't go there yet. We'll go there when you're ready to, but we're not going to go until all parts of you are ready to go to that area.
Yeah.
And that we're going to build you lots of skills and resiliency so that you can handle it. Because that's the big thing. Like you can handle it.
I think that's the fear is that if I go back there, I don't know if I can handle it.
Right. And I heard this from a psychologist and I just loved it, where they're like, anxiety is just fear of memories.
Yeah.
It's just a fear of a memory. Like, go get it. Like, it's just a fear of a memory. And so we can frame it sometimes in that way. You're like, I'm scared of a memory.
Yeah. It does help, I think, to think of it in that way.
Yeah.
Right? Like it can't come back and hurt you again.
Exactly. It can't. It's already happened. It's done and over with. So it can't hurt you.
But it is haunting you.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then within therapy, we've got lots of strategies so that we're not going to become overwhelmed to actually tap into that. That's the whole point. With going to therapy, the whole point isn't to flood a person and make it so untenable. It is just little
slowly peel
slowly
back
tending
the layers.
to it.
Yeah. So there are many sort of, I don't want to call them symptoms, but manifestations, let's say, of unresolved trauma, right? And things that you might not think would be connected to it.
Yes.
You know, OCD, like obsessive compulsive disorders, eating disorders, you know, anxiety, depression, the list goes on and on.
Yeah.
And how do you help clients understand, like, and for, you know, I've lived with anxiety for most of my adult life. Just like a slow burning hum that's always kind of there. And for me, I just sort of was like, oh, that's the way it is. But how do you, like, when somebody is really struggling, let's say with, treatment resistant depression or really chronic anxiety that can be extreme panic attacks, how do you help them understand that this may be connected? Like they're coming to you and being like, Ashley, help me. I just have anxiety. I don't know why. It's just there. How do you help them circle back to like, this could be caused by unresolved trauma? Right.
So one thing is I like to look at everyone as like the whole picture. So I'm going to recommend like go to your doctor, get like full blood paneling done. Like we want to see where everything is at. I mean, we have to look at the whole individual person. So I'm always going to recommend doing that. And then in terms of if it's looking back at that unresolved trauma, I'm going to look at it from that polyvagal theory. And that is when we talk about like that fight, flight, freeze response. And I talk a lot about neuroception. So neuroception in essence is all this information that's coming into our brain. Like, so that amygdala, that watchtower, I mean, it's on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's always on. And so everything from like the people that we're with, sights, sounds, smells, you name it, our body is constantly like aware of it. And even right now, like this morning when I came out for my bike ride here, I just did that little, I'm like, oh, the smoke. Oh, I could smell that whiff, right? And even just a little bit of like, there's a little bit of a, so it's like, but we're like, no, there's nothing here. It's, you know, we're okay, right? And so I explained neuroception that like this thing is on 24 hours a day. And so it's going on and it's picking up cues from the past, from our entire life, because as soon as we come out of the womb, our body is trying to understand like what is safety and what is danger, like what's safe, what's danger, what's safe, what's danger. And it's always on. And sometimes when we're growing up or throughout our life is that it becomes skewed. So something that
like the guys in the watchtower are like a little too on.
Yes.
They're overtaking the front part of the brain that thinks.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. And so, and it may give us wrong information. So for example, I remembered this case study and I just found it so fascinating because there was a person who absolutely hated yellow t-shirts. It activated them like no tomorrow. They really did not like yellow t-shirts. It didn't matter where they were. If they saw someone in a yellow t-shirt, they were like,
they got like the, like
right?
the ick.
Yeah. They hated it. Super, super activating. And
Interesting.
as they were going through trauma reprocessing, the memory that came up is that their abuser wore a yellow t-shirt.
Oh.
And so that neuroception was coming in, who paired the like bad things happen
From
with
people with yellow t-shirts. Oh, wow.
So it was
their
fascinating.
guards in the watchtower, every time they saw a yellow t-shirt, were like, danger, danger. Oh, interesting.
So that's the neuroception. So I like to explain it in these types of terms where we don't always know what those things are, but our body remembers.
Yeah.
Like our body remembers, our brain remembers, because our brain is really just trying to help us out. It's trying to keep us safe from these dangers that actually may be dangerous or absolutely may not be dangerous at all.
Yeah.
So that's how I like to kind of explain. And it kind of seems fun when people are like, a yellow t-shirt, really? It's like, yeah. And they're like, oh, so maybe I'm not so insane or crazy because my brain's just trying to help me out. It just got the wrong information. It got the wrong cues.
The guys in the watchtower are just too vigilant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We want to watch out for that guy, like the bad guy. And
the real bad guy.
Right?
Yeah.
But the yellow t-shirt actually can't hurt me.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah, it was fascinating.
And like connected to that is sort of this idea that, you know, we're trying to like, that part of our brain, the watchtower. I love that analogy. I think it's so good. Because when the watchtower is on, everything else is off, right? Offline-ish. But like, so the watchtower is on, but in order for us to feel safe, I think a lot of people, myself included, try to control as much as possible.
Oh yeah.
And you and I were talking about this because they're afraid, right? So if you're afraid, what do? Is you try to control.
Exactly.
And we were talking about this before we started recording, this idea that when we're trying to control things so hypersensitively that the world gets super, super small. So it's like, I was afraid of getting on an airplane. So I actually thought that a way to deal with that was to never get on one again. Right.
Brilliant strategy, isn't it?
Yes.
Let's just avoid that feeling.
Right.
Yes.
And but then a whole lot of things are no longer available.
Correct.
Maybe staying at home all the time is a way to avoid people in yellow t-shirts. Right. And so then the world gets even smaller.
Yes.
It's just very interesting how these fears will manifest. And maybe for somebody that's listening right now, if you're living in a world that's really small by your choice, right? It's an opportunity, an invitation to be like, oh, where am I making these choices? Because I am trying to control and make myself feel safe.
Yes. And I'm also avoiding the feeling.
Yeah.
Right? That if I feel uncomfortable, it's bad.
Yeah.
Or if I feel anxious, it's bad.
It is though. It doesn't feel good.
It doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
And
yes. It's maybe not real.
And it doesn't mean that it's dangerous.
Yeah.
Right? Like something that feels unfamiliar is just unfamiliar. It's not good. It's not bad. It's just unfamiliar. Or something that feels bad doesn't actually mean that it's bad.
Right.
Like, does this response actually make sense? Like when I'm outside and I'm feeling super panicky and I'm looking outside and it's beautiful and it's sunny and there's no sign of danger. Like, does this response make sense? It doesn't.
And so if the answer is no.
Yeah.
Then you go and you see Dr. Ashley and you're like, my world's really small, or, you know, I am afraid of this or that, flying, whatever, or I'm struggling with this area of my life. And I can't get unstuck. I want to get into this conversation about EMDR because like, I feel like there's all sorts of like, when we talk about therapy, we talk about CBT, or cognitive behavioral therapy, which is kind of talking and peeling apart the layers of the onion that you talked about is really, really important. But the EMDR works a little different.
Yes, it does.
So what is it? And how does it help us access maybe some of these things that are locked in?
Yeah.
Where we don't even really know why things are happening.
Yeah. So EMDR, I clearly love this therapy. I think it's wonderful and it's great. And the thing about it is it's called like EMDR, like the eye movement desensitization and processing. And the founder now says she would just call it reprocessing therapy. That's a bit of a tongue twister to say, but EMDR. And it's an 8-phase protocol that is designed to dissolve traumas from our brain. And so it really gets to the root cause of what's going on versus constantly.
But like neurologically.
Yeah. Like it's getting in there into our brain and nervous system to actually dissolve the trauma. So it's no longer traumatic for someone. They can think about that disturbing event and it's neutral, like clear. It doesn't bother them. There might be like a little bit of ick if it's appropriate, you know, because it's like, yeah, that was a really disturbing event. So there's always going to be a little bit of a.
But I'm okay.
But I'm totally okay. It happened. It's over. Like. It's fine. And the whole idea is that EMDR is built on this whole premise that we all have this natural ability to heal. Like we all have this natural ability to heal. Like if I have a splinter in my finger, like there's going to be healing all around it. But if I don't remove the splinter every time I touch my finger on this table, it's going to hurt.
Yeah.
EMDR is like pulling that splinter out so that we can have healing like all the way around it. So I might see that there was like, oh, there was like maybe a scar from that splinter. So I see it.
It doesn't hurt.
But it doesn't hurt. And we use eye movements as one strategy to really help unlock and digest those traumatic memories from our brain. Like that is in the simplest of pieces. That is what EMDR does.
It is so, I've had it. So I really feel like I can speak with authority on this as a patient. It did work for me. So I have I think my story is a good illustration. You know, I did have a traumatic experience. A car accident was serious and I walked away, which was also like part of like the weirdness for me was like, so many people don't walk away. And like, I would just replay the car accident in my head. And like, what if one little thing happened and then I didn't, you know, and I just, I actually still to this day remember the thoughts of like, ooh, that was like when the car stopped moving, like, ooh, that was a bad one. And then I literally like felt all over my body, like, oh my gosh, okay, I'm okay.
Yeah.
I'm okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But I didn't realize that I was like, okay, well, I'm okay. But I didn't realize that trauma was locked in.
Right. And I had the same experience.
Yeah.
So I had a car accident and it wasn't until I tried EMDR where I was like, oh.
Yes.
And that's how I dived into getting my training and going the way that I've done was having my own experience after a car accident. And it wasn't that big of a deal, but it stuck.
So what? Yeah. Okay. I know what happens, but can you explain what like, well, let's start. Where did it come from? You mentioned there's a founder, right? And how has the science around this evolved? Like, how did they figure this out?
Yeah, it's so random. And so the story that was told to me is that Dr. Francine Shapiro, she was out for a walk one day, just out for a walk in the park. And she noticed that she was having a very disturbing thought and her eyes naturally moved back and forth. And the thought wasn't as disturbing anymore. So she's like, huh. And she thinks of another like disturbing thought and her eyes just naturally did this on their own. They naturally moved back and forth pretty quick and thought about that memory again. Wasn't as disturbing. She goes back to the office. She talks to a colleague. She's like, think of something disturbing. And his eyes didn't move back and forth. So she just started doing that.
Like moving her hand.
Yeah, moving her hand to try to get him to get his eyes moved back and forth. And he noticed as well. And that became essentially the launch point of this therapy was that
the hypothesis
moment of like, huh. And that's how it all began. And it started as EMD to begin. And then it came into this whole protocol that we know today because they really dove into it. And now today we have so much research. It is mind-boggling how much research this is that shows how effective this is, that it's proven. It's a top-line treatment when it comes to PTSD. Like it's phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
And all from just going for a walk in the park and how her eyes naturally moved back and forth.
It is amazing. So what are you doing when you're like working with an EMDR client? Like what, I know what happens, but like maybe you can share with the audience, like what, there's like a lot of finger waving and watch my finger and like think about the thing and watch my finger.
Yeah. So once we kind of do all the prep work, because it's important that like, we're not going to jump right into doing reprocessing in the very first session. We're going to do prep work, getting people ready for it, explaining EMDR, doing history taking. We want to understand like what has led to today's symptoms.
Like what are we looking for?
Yeah, like we want to actually target the appropriate memory, not just any kind of random memory. But the actual process of phase 4 of reprocessing is, you know, we're going to ask you just to, I have light bars, but essentially we want to get your eyes moved back and forth. So I might use my hand, right? I have tappers, so people can hold onto these tapper things. Yeah. And it just buzzes back and forth.
Oh, interesting. That's the sound.
And then we have headphones too.
Okay.
So headphones, so we've got lots of different ways. And if someone has a concussion, for example, or a traumatic brain injury, we don't use eye movements. We're going to put that over here. We're going to use other things like the tappers, the sounds, to essentially get this thing rolling.
What are the tappers?
Tappers, like I call them like almost like little eggs.
Like they make noise?
They buzz.
Oh, okay.
So like it's a vibration that goes back and forth.
Interesting.
And so, for example, when we're reprocessing, if someone's crying, I mean, which is a natural response, you know, then that way they can actually close their eyes and just feel the tappers and they're still in reprocessing mode.
I see.
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah. Or I might even come up to the client. So depending on what their comfortability is and relationally, I might actually get really, really close to them and actually do the tapping myself on their knees, for example, or their feet.
So what is going on there? Is it like the left brain, right brain, like hemisphere thing? Yeah. What is happening?
Great question.
I'm sorry. This is just fascinating to me.
So I wish I was a neuroscientist to really like dive into all the nuances of the whole thing. We have a few different theories as to why it works. So one is that we are recreating like the REM sleep cycle when we're getting people's eyes move rapidly back and forth. And that inherently is the time of our sleep. We're really pruning off things and cleaning stuff up.
Vacuum cleaner.
Yeah. So just, right. So that's one part of it. We also know that when I do eye movements like this, it's still
up
effective,
and down,
right?
Vertically.
So they're also looking at the working memory taxation, which is we're thinking about this disturbing memory while doing multiple tasks at the same time, like follow my movements and notice the tappers, those sorts of things. And that starts to crowd out the traumatic memory so that we're reconsolidating the memory and degrades the memory.
I can't even believe they figured this stuff out.
Yeah, there's incredible research that's going on right now, especially in the Netherlands, around that primary theory.
It's fascinating. So the average, I don't know. I mean, I know everybody's different. You're going to say there's no average, but like this isn't something that you just do like one time. Can you like, I recall, I think I probably had 3 or 4 sessions, but also I got like some tools that I could take with me so that I could practice, let's say when I was doing the flying, which is the traumatic event. Right. So like how long does this take?
Yeah.
Like, can we just come in and have one big session and be done?
Potentially. I mean, like in some cases, like when there's like a natural disaster, they will fly in EMDR therapists, they will drop them and they are doing EMDR with those individuals. They can be doing it in group settings and essentially it's a one and done thing.
Wow.
So they'll do that. When we're looking at, let's say like a single incident, like a simple PTSD, let's say a car accident, it could be like a one and done, but that might be like, I call them intensives where they're coming in for the day.
Got it.
So that we can really clear stuff up. And then in other cases, it could be like years in the chair, especially if it is like complex trauma, complex PTSD. That's going to take a much more significant amount of time versus like a very simple like PTSD.
Singular event.
Yes.
Yeah. Where you can really put your finger on it and yeah.
Right.
And so is it effective for everyone or are there some situations where it may not be a fit?
Super great question. And EMDR is going to be effective when it's a trauma-based event.
Okay.
It's not going to be effective if it's not a trauma-based thing.
Okay.
So for example, when, let's say someone comes in and their loved one has died, and they were in a car accident together, and their partner was driving and they died, and the other partner comes in and they have PTSD from the event, and they also blame themselves for what happened.
Right.
And while I can't clear out the grief of losing a loved one, we can work on that traumatic event so that the grief essentially goes down because they're not blaming themselves for the accident, because it wasn't their fault.
Right.
Right. So it really depends on situations like that, where it's, yes, I can clear out some trauma related grief, but I can't clear out natural grief. Like, we can't clear what is natural.
Yeah. Right. Like, because grief is, I don't want to say normal.
Grief is so normal.
Yeah.
We grieve in lots of different ways, whether it's a job loss, for example, or the death of a loved one. I mean, that's a natural process.
Yeah.
Right. We don't have depression.
Right. But the neurological response to grief is different than, say, what the neurological response is to trauma.
Yes.
Yeah. And that would be kind of the distinction. Are there other, grief is such a great one to use as an example. Are there other experiences that people might have that would result in the same kinds of symptoms we're talking about, the depression, anxiety, panic attacks, whatever, that again may not necessarily be trauma based?
Right. I work a lot with individuals that have ADHD.
Yeah. Okay. Great example.
Right. And with ADHD, I mean, that's neurobiological. We're not going to clear that out.
Yeah.
However,
with EMDR.
Yeah. We're not going to clear that out. I mean, that's a natural thing.
Yeah.
However, we can work on the secondary traumas that come from having ADHD, like maybe core belief systems of I don't belong. I hear that so much. Like, I don't belong. I'm powerless. I'm a loser. I'm dumb. Like, the intelligence side of things, we can clear out those traumas from having ADHD,
right?
Especially if they had no diagnosis, especially if they didn't get the help and support that they needed, and understanding what this thing is. So we can clear out the secondary traumas. And what tends to happen is that things can start, the volume dial starts to go down on these things. So therefore, perhaps their ADHD symptoms aren't as big as an intense in their lives because this other stuff is now resolved.
Right, right. Oh, I love that you use that as an example. My daughter has ADHD. I've shared on this podcast numerous times, and she's totally okay with it. But I understand what you're saying about the associated trauma of having undiagnosed ADHD, because there are narratives that I didn't even know were constructed, that are not necessarily, I don't want to say real, because it's real for the person experiencing them.
Absolutely.
But it's like the watchtower is just seeing things that are kind of normal, but making them not normal, right? The not belonging, the I'm dumb, I'm a loser,
yeah,
right.
So, I mean, we have more challenges when we have ADHD. We may understand things differently. We need to be taught differently. We need to be communicated differently. And so those are the small T traumas that come along the way. Might be that, well, the teacher in school refused to make any accommodations, even though we're saying, I don't understand. And they're like, well, why don't you get it?
Yeah.
It's on the board. Why don't you get it?
Or you're sitting there and you don't get it, but you don't want anybody to know that you don't get it. And yet, you don't feel seen.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. And again, especially with children, we're looking at the developmental age.
Yeah.
Right. What I know as an adult now is, of course, I learn differently. I understand differently. I tell my husband all the time, draw me pictures. I don't learn audibly. Draw me a picture and I can understand that.
Oh, interesting.
Right.
Yeah.
As a kid, I didn't have that skill set to name that. It was just do what the teacher says. So these were those core beliefs get formed, is because I didn't have that skill as a child to tell the teacher.
Yeah.
I don't get it. Can you draw me a picture?
Right. Yeah. Well, and school's so complicated too, especially now. It's if you're not thriving and killing it, it's just you're dumb, right? Like, you know,
Yeah.
and, or you're like the naughty kid or whatever, right?
Mhm.
Like there's so,
Like sit down in your chair. Like just sit
yes,
down. And it's like, that's not going to work for a
no,
neurodivergent kid. It's
no.
not going to work. We have to move our bodies, right? That's how we learn
Mhm.
is by through movement. So
Mhm.
again, I'm an 80s baby. So, you know, we didn't really have that information back then, but now we do.
Yeah. And thankfully, I think that there's a lot of people that want to make some really progressive changes to the way that we educate kids so that we can, you know, like it's a different conversation, but the whole neurodivergent thing, it's like, it's so common.
Yeah.
Like, how are they divergent when like there's so many kids that have this wiring,
Right.
you know, it's just a different brain type.
Right.
Anyway.
But this is where we have the adults, right?
Yeah.
We have the adults now who really grow up with these, that really have those core beliefs.
Yes.
And that's where the reprocessing comes in. Because now we have the adult information of, oh, like I just learned differently. I'm not dumb. I learned differently. We want to like upload that adaptive information or what we know to be true now. We want to upload it into their brain.
Yes.
And that's what happens when we're doing the reprocessing as well, is that the information that we know to be true is actually getting uploaded.
Right.
Yeah.
You mentioned earlier in the conversation about this sensation of like being triggered. And I think this is really, I just want to double click on that a little bit because I don't know, this was such a huge teaching and an awareness for me, is like, and then you talked about sort of resolving and how you know something is resolved is like that you no longer feel the pain or the suffering around that, you know, sliver or whatever.
Yeah, it feels neutral, no disturbance.
It's just kind of like, eh. So how do you know like when something is not resolved, right? Tell me about that. I mean, and maybe it's just like we can only describe it in terms of like how it feels in our own experiences. But I know for me, there are certain things, certain people, certain experiences that if I see that, like the yellow t-shirt, for example, and I still get a hit. Like it's kind of like, you talked about like that, the smell of the smoke, the little, there's like something happens. It's like I'm doing a terrible job of explaining
You're
this.
doing great. You're doing beautiful.
Says the therapist.
You are.
But like you get, I call it a hit. It's like oh, there's something there, right?
Somatic reaction.
Yes. Is that an indication that there's something there?
Generally, yeah.
Yeah.
We want to like,
Yeah.
can we get curious about
Like
it?
the guys in the watchtower just like lifted their guns.
Totally.
Yeah.
Right. And again, the question I love asking is like in this moment, in this place, with these people, is this response warranted?
Yeah.
And if it's like, it's not, then I would be curious about diving in deeper because trauma is encoded somatically. It is stored in our bodies. When we're doing reprocessing in EMDR, the final phase of reprocessing is the body scan. It is checking our body from head to toe. When we think of that disturbing event and our new positive belief system, like it's over, I'm safe now, is there any residual in our bodies? And it's the final piece.
Okay.
Right. So, I mean, trauma is encoded somatically. So if we're going about our days and we're noticing that pang when, let's say we get a text message. I always love the text message. We hear that pang and our body's like, right. Think of like, you know, we broke up with our ex and we had a special ping sound for it. And every time we now hear that ping, our body just, right.
Yes.
So, I mean, there is a very encoded.
Okay. So we'll call it a ping. You're getting a ping.
A pang, a reaction. Call it what you want, but you notice a physical
response.
Hit. Yeah.
And it can be like, if you're not really paying attention, this is why I love yoga and mindfulness practices, because like it gets you to practice like paying attention to those things, because it can be so subtle that you don't even really realize that it happened. You're just noticing all of a sudden you're in a bad mood, or you're like agitated or upset or anxious or whatever, and you're like, what the hell, like, oops, what just happened? You know?
And we don't always know, and thankfully within EMDR, like we don't always have to know the why. We don't have to know like it was this memory and that is a thing. We have lots of strategies like to figure out what those things are. We like we use these things, and it could be just go with the body sensation and float back to an earlier time. And clearly I'm not doing it full justice, but we have lots of strategies to help us understand what, as a therapist, what it is going to be.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes the client is like, I don't really like this memory.
Mm-hmm.
This is a thing that's
Mm-hmm.
like connected to the root cause of all my stuff. And I'm like, apparently, let's
Mm-hmm.
just reprocess it and see what happens. And it's always amazing every time people are like, oh
yeah,
that's why. Like they can oftentimes like associate why that thing became the thing.
interesting.
Because again, things are coded like through sights and smells and body sensations. It's encoded through all these different things in
Mm-hmm.
all the channels.
Mm-hmm.
So when we process, sometimes it's like, oh, that's why that thing, that was the thing.
Oh, it's fascinating.
It is. And we don't always know the why. So we don't have to know every single detail
Right.
of your life. We don't have to know every single memory and like what particular memory is causing all the distress. We find that out in
But when you
session.
walk it back through the EMDR.
Yeah, and doing our processes
Yep.
of understanding and figuring out and history taking and the different phases that I'll do, like it'll be like, I know this doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
But let's reprocess this anyway. And they're
Mhm.
like, okay, this is weird.
Yeah.
That we're going to process this memory when I was 6. And I'm like,
Let's
and-
try.
yeah. And it's amazing what it does. And then as we clear everything out, all the symptoms start to dissolve as well.
It's fascinating.
Mm.
I am so grateful for you coming here. I love your approach is I think, sometimes I don't even want to call it an alternative modality, but just these different types of tools that we have. Even just discussions around trauma and, some people just back away and go, oh, this is more of this woo-woo stuff and whatever, right?
It's funny you say that because I say like, this is kind of woo-woo when I realize
So
that to
do
my
I.
clients. I'm like, I know this is kind of woo-woo. I promise that there is research behind it. Here's some videos. But
Yes.
I do say like,
But I do love that you balance the woo-woo, because some of it is a little bit woo-woo, because it's like, I don't even know how you can explain how this works, but you can. But I love that you are also very much research science-based. Like this isn't just something that, you saw on TikTok and it's like, oh yeah, no, this is cool.
yeah. And especially for Francine Shapiro, I mean, at the beginning, they thought she was
Yeah.
insane, right?
Yeah.
I mean, like, really? You want me to just follow your hand?
Yeah.
And that's where, of course, like the deep dive of all the research to really show and to prove. I mean, EMDR has been controversial even up until the last, like, I think, few years. Like,
Yeah.
there's some people who really think, and especially trainees that I've worked with, they're like, this is insane.
Yeah.
And then they become believers once they see
Yeah.
what happens. But it still kind of feels a bit like woo-woo when you think about it.
Yeah.
But the research is very clear
Yeah.
that this is a very effective top-of-the-line treatment when it comes to PTSD and other trauma-related incidents.
So I want to ask for your advice for people out there that are listening that are feeling sort of really motivated by this conversation to look into EMDR, or even just to sort of start to unravel,
Yes.
what may be keeping them stuck, holding them back, the anxiety, the depression, the compulsive disorder, whatever it is that they're struggling with. What is your advice on choosing a therapist? Like,
Yeah.
that is so, because here's the thing. I'm not going to rant or anything, but like, I was very careful. We were careful when we selected you, because there's a lot of people out there offering services right now. There's everything from like, and I don't want to, this is in no particular order, no ranking, but you've got like the life coaches and the counselors. There's clinical counselors. There's doctors, psychiatrists, there are specialists in this or that. And some of them are qualified and some of them are not actually, like it's a different level of qualifications. What should people be looking for?
Yeah. And I can say that I've gone through like lots of websites helping my clients find with referrals, for example. And sometimes I look at a bio and I'm like, I don't understand what these acronyms are.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
I mean, like I can find it sometimes confusing at times, and I am a clinician. So I know that it's very difficult for a lot of people who are out there trying to find like who is the best person.
And especially when
right?
you just start on a Google.
Totally. what we're going to look for is that we want to look for like typically like a master's level educated person. And so especially with EMDR, they have to be a master's level educated to do the training. There are some EMDR trainings that are out there that are for anyone to do, and they're not accredited by EMDRIA.
Right.
So with EMDR, we're looking for someone who is at least has the master's level. That would be someone who also is like a registered clinical counselor, a Canadian certified counselor, registered social worker, psychologist, psychiatrist. Those are all individuals that would have like good street cred. And then we want to look for what is their area of expertise.
Okay.
What is their area of expertise? If someone has an eating disorder, we want to go to see like an EMDR therapist who specializes in eating disorders. Like an EMDR therapist cannot work with every single thing. We have to stay within our scope of practice. So that's an incredibly big part is, does that person have the experience of what you need?
Got it.
And in your first session, if you're with that counselor and they're saying, I'm not the right fit for you because you're asking, like, this is what you're looking for, that therapist can actually help with maybe finding another person. They might say, listen, I'm not the right fit, but this person, that's their area of expertise. And this is who I'd recommend.
And, you know, it's interesting that I love that you say that, because we talk to, we talk to a lot of like physicians, obviously, on this podcast, and they have spoken in the past about, you want somebody when you're when you're having brain surgery, you want somebody that's does a lot of brain surgery, right? Like, so because it's different than, say, cardiac surgery or ortho, like knee surgery, right? And so you're basically saying the same thing, is like, seek out somebody that has specialty in the particular area.
Yeah. It's their bread and butter.
Yeah.
It's their bread and butter. It's all that they do.
What is I know you have some specialties. What are yours?
Yeah. So I work a lot with PTSD.
Yeah.
I work a lot with individuals that have ADHD and work a lot around understanding it and working through that. Love working with parents after birth. So with traumatic births and helping after that. Those are like my top 3.
Okay. Yeah. And you're here in Kelowna.
I am.
You have a
just
clinic.
down the street.
Yeah. So we're just going to, this has gone by so fast, and you've been so generous with your sharing your knowledge and your wisdom.
We could talk for another few hours.
I
feel.
know, right? This is
we
what
can have
always
a part 2.
happens. We like literally just scratch the surface of a topic, and it's like, oh, we need like 2 more episodes at least to get to the, yeah, totally. We'll have you back. So I just actually want to kind of circle around to maybe like a little bit of a bigger picture. If you think back to like little Ashley or university Ashley, the world of healthcare has changed a lot, I think. In the last several decades, not just kind of like in the delivery, but in how we think about health and healthcare. So how would you say your definition of health or healthcare has changed over the years, or has it?
It's actually really changed. At the beginning, it was so much about like working out and eating like healthy foods. And like, that was really the thing, right? Like, movement and food, that is the big piece. And now my definition has really changed to really include like regulating, calming our nervous system, rest, like stop pushing so hard, Ashley. It's okay to just lie on the rug in the office and take like a 5-minute nap. Like, that's okay. And that's been a big shift for me, especially in the last few years, is honoring that it doesn't have to be like work out really hard, especially when you're exhausted and there's nothing left in the tank. It's, maybe we don't do a really big bike ride today. Yeah. And we maybe go to yoga, or we go and take a nap for a little bit, or just maybe do a very chill, easy bike ride instead of always having to push so hard.
And I think you've really hit the nail on the head with, back in the day, it was always sort of like about like physical health, right? It was like, oh, eat the right things, exercise, all these things. But like the nervous system it's not even that it got left behind. It just wasn't even part of the conversation necessarily.
Yeah.
Whereas I think now we're starting to learn that sometimes, actually often, eating the right foods and engaging in regular physical activity has a profound effect on our nervous system. But so also do activities like mindfulness and reading a book and yoga, where
And sit
it's
by the
quiet
water and just watch the waves.
Yeah, like it just
drink your water.
do nothing.
Right.
Like, nothing. I know that's been a huge thing for me too, because I'm like a type A, Virgo, doer, all the things, right? And it's just like telling myself that part of being healthy is doing nothing.
Yes.
That's like
it's insane.
Wild.
And that at the same time is that we want to honor that 30 seconds might be enough.
Yeah.
That going to maybe a 20-minute meditation, that's just not going to work. Or we're just too amped for that. Or we don't feel safe enough to do that yet.
Yeah.
So I look at doing those micro moments. Like, can we take 5 seconds even to just take a deep breath?
Yeah.
And that actually might be enough for our nervous system to just start tolerating it in smaller amounts.
And actually, there's a lot of evidence that suggests that's actually the case. Just sitting and taking a deep breath has a profound effect on the nervous system.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of my favorites is I like to get really nice hand soap that smells really good.
Oh.
So that whenever I wash my hands, I'm just taking that
Do you
minute
like?
to just, yes, I do. I do. I know, Saturday Night Live reference. It's great. I love, like, it's like, it smells so good and it feels so pleasant. And I'm washing my hands multiple times a day.
Yeah.
And it's a great little hack of, I'm just going to slow down and wash my hands and smell the soap and how I love the smell. And yes, it's expensive soap and it's great.
Oh, I love that. Find your thing out there, people. Like, that's a great one.
Yeah.
I don't know if soap's my thing.
It doesn't have to be.
It doesn't have to be.
It doesn't have to be. That's just my thing that I really enjoy. And clouds. I love just looking at the clouds.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Huh. I'll have to think about that.
Yeah.
I'm sure I do have things. They're not on the tip of my consciousness right now, but that's great advice. Okay, so Wealthy Podcast, we are very proud of the fact that this is an inclusive health conversation and that we're not just talking about physical health, but all the aspects of health, you know, emotional, mental, spiritual, you know, the health of our communities, all of these things. What areas of your life do you feel wealthy?
Oh, I feel just so privileged of having like a great community of friends. I feel very privileged that I have a cute little home that feels very nourishing and restful when I'm there, because I know environment is so key. So living here in Kelowna and just having access to being by the water and that I can bike everywhere, it just feels so abundant. Yeah. That these little things are accessible to doing well.
Mm-hmm. It's so funny. I was thinking about that yesterday. We're planning our fall marketing campaign. So in addition to doing the podcast, I provide leadership to our communications and marketing team. And I was thinking about, like, what is healthy, you know? And you talked about just we're so blessed to live in this place where, like, oh man, just the proximity to the lake and the mountains and all of these things that are just like free right there. And that, again, I guess definitions of health can be totally subjective, but what a gift that this like place gives to us.
Yeah.
Right?
Because environment is also so key for our health.
Yeah. And it just got me thinking, you know, like we often talk about healthcare in reference to kind of like, or even represent healthcare in terms of sick care. Right? But like, what does health look like? Right?
Yeah.
Anyway, I digress, but you've inspired me. So, you know, there's a lot of talk. Mental health care is appropriately being elevated. Some say there's a bit of a crisis in terms of like our mental health care these days, or our mental health just in general. But I want to, and you've given us some really amazing insights into some of the therapies and tools that are out there. So despite these challenges, like, what gives you the most hope about the future of the mental health and well-being of our communities?
Broadly, I'd say it's that conversations are happening, that we're having conversations about it, that we are aware that there are therapies that exist, that we have some maybe choice and autonomy in going and getting help and support. And I just really love that the stigma is really starting to decrease, right? I really love it when like I'm working with my male clients, because I know it can be like harder for them to access services because of stigma. And I'm noticing definitely a shift in that way. And then on a micro level, I love the conversations that are happening right now about the use of our phone and technology, and the conversations of people being really aware that this thing actually isn't really working for them, like isn't really working for their mental health. It's not supporting them, and really working on making changes in their life based on this, like putting their phone away, deleting apps. Because I do see like how significant of a problem access to this phone, this device all the time is having, and that people are aware of it, and that people are making those conscious choices to not pull back, not have, their children on phones from a really young age, like those sorts of things. And that gives me so much hope when I see that.
I agree with you. I look at my kids, honestly, in my family, full disclosure, my kids are actually pulling back from their use of the phone. Yeah. The worst perpetrators are me and my husband. Like, we're still like the ones that are like,
like, take it away.
I know, like, it's like the doom scrolling or whatever. But like, but I agree with you. I do think that the pendulum swung. We didn't realize that there was all these downstream consequences, and it's correcting. Thank goodness.
Agreed.
Okay, the last word, Ashley, is yours. If there's one thing one message that you could leave our listeners with, what would it be?
Like, things aren't going to get better just because like you're another year or two older, or like you think by the time you're 40, this is all going to go away, or 50, or whatever the case is. Like, trauma does not just magically disappear on its own. So if you're having a lot of challenges, if you have a lot of core belief systems, if you have these like traumatic memories, like, please go see a therapist, go work with someone who specializes in like trauma therapy, so that it can get better.
Because it will.
Like, it will. Like, it's not just going to magically go away. I mean, I wish I did. That'd be fabulous. It'd be great, but that's not how the brain works.
Yeah. Ashley, this has been an amazing conversation. I really, really appreciate you and the work that you're doing in the community. You have a great reputation. The EMDR therapy worked for me like 25 years ago.
Yeah.
And to this day, it's hanging on. Like, all of that work was not for nothing. It's not like something that you have to keep going back and do again.
Exactly.
It's finished. And
it gets to the root cause.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah. So I'm really grateful to have been able to talk to you about this and share all of this information with our community. Thank you for doing the work that you do, and thank you for being here today. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for having me, and I'm so grateful.